Ever wondered what SQL injection is and why it poses a threat to web applications and databases? Well, SQL injection is a code injection technique that attackers use to sneak malicious SQL code through input fields or parameters. This can lead to unauthorized access to data, data manipulation, or even data loss. It's like handing over the keys to your database to an attacker, allowing them to do as they please. This is why SQL injection is considered a significant threat in the world of web development and database security. But fret not, there are various strategies to mitigate this threat, such as using parameterized queries, input validation and sanitization, escaping special characters, and following the principle of least privilege. We'll also explore the use of stored procedures, web application firewalls, regular security audits, secure coding practices, and database security measures. Stay tuned as we delve into the various strategies to mitigate SQL injection attacks. The first line of defense against SQL injection is the use of parameterized queries or prepared statements. Now, what exactly are these? In essence, parameterized queries, also known as prepared statements, are a method of separating SQL code from user input. By adopting this approach, we establish a clear boundary between the actual SQL commands and the user-supplied data. This is achieved by utilizing placeholders for user input values, which effectively prevents attackers from injecting malicious SQL code into your database. This method is supported by most programming languages and database frameworks, making it a universally applicable and highly effective strategy. So, by treating user input as literal values rather than potentially executable code, parameterized queries essentially neutralize the threat of SQL injection attacks. They're like a formidable fortress wall, keeping harmful intruders at bay. Parameterized queries effectively neutralize SQL injection attacks by treating user input as literal values and not executable code. Another vital strategy is input validation and sanitization. This involves checking and cleaning user inputs before using them in SQL queries. An effective way to do this is by using whitelisting and blacklisting methods. Whitelisting allows only known good inputs, while blacklisting filters out known bad inputs. These techniques ensure that only safe and expected data makes its way into your database. By validating and sanitizing inputs, you can prevent malicious code from being executed. Escaping special characters is another effective method to mitigate SQL injection. In SQL, certain characters like quotes and semicolons have special meanings. Attackers may use these to manipulate queries. By adding escape characters to user input, we modify the input strings and neutralize the effect of these special characters. Essentially, this approach ensures that the database interprets these characters literally, not as part of the SQL query itself. This technique prevents special characters in user input from being interpreted as part of the SQL query. Let's now discuss the least privilege principle and the use of stored procedures. The least privilege principle is a computer security concept in which a user is given the minimum levels of access necessary to complete his or her job functions. When applied to databases, this principle is instrumental in limiting the potential damage from SQL injection. If an attacker gains access, the restricted permissions can prevent them from executing harmful commands or accessing sensitive data. On the other hand, stored procedures are another excellent defense mechanism. These are SQL statements stored in the database that applications can call upon. Instead of the application sending an SQL query to the database, it calls a stored procedure which executes the SQL for it. This encapsulation of SQL code reduces the risk of SQL injection, as the application isn't directly executing dynamic SQL queries. These strategies reduce the risk of SQL injection by limiting permissions and encapsulating SQL code within the database. Web application firewalls and regular security audits are key to preventing SQL injection. Web application firewalls, or WAFs, act as a protective shield between your web application and the outside world. They analyze incoming web traffic, identifying and blocking potentially harmful requests. This includes those sneaky SQL injection attempts that try to manipulate your database and gain unauthorized access. But remember, a WAF is not a magic bullet. It should be part of a layered defense strategy. Now let's talk about regular security audits and penetration testing. These proactive measures help you identify and fix vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. Think of it like a routine checkup for your web application's health. Regular audits scrutinize your application for potential weaknesses, while penetration testing simulates real-world attacks to validate your defenses. These measures help identify and address vulnerabilities, thereby enhancing the security of your applications. Finally, let's talk about secure coding practices and database security measures. It's no secret that the backbone of any secure application is the code itself. Therefore, training developers on secure coding practices is a must. This includes understanding the risks associated with SQL injection and knowing how to write code that mitigates such vulnerabilities. For instance, developers should be versed in the use of parameterized queries, input validation, and special character escaping, among other techniques. Switching gears, let's delve into database security measures. These comprise tactics such as input validation within the database, strong authentication mechanisms, and encryption of sensitive data at rest and in transit. Notably, these measures reinforce the protection of your databases, thus making it harder for attackers to exploit them. In conclusion, the marriage of secure coding practices and robust database security measures forms a potent cocktail against SQL injection attacks. These strategies ensure secure code development and enhance the overall security posture of your databases. To sum up, SQL injection is a significant threat, but with the right strategies, you can effectively mitigate it. The use of parameterized queries separates SQL code from user input, making it harder for attackers to inject malicious code. Strict input validation and sanitization, as well as escaping special characters, further secure your SQL queries. By applying the least privilege principle and using stored procedures, you limit the potential damage of an attack. Incorporating web application, firewalls, and conducting regular security audits and penetration tests can help detect and block attack attempts. Training in secure coding practices and implementing database security measures are also essential. These strategies, when combined, create a robust defense against SQL injection. Remember, a combination of these measures, along with continuous monitoring and updates, is crucial for effectively mitigating SQL injection vulnerabilities. Stay secure.